Please come and give our stuff a listen. Expect the Spanish Inquisition. It's head first only television.
Good evening all. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jules. Happy birthday to you. Very big shout out to Guppy Wigber, who is celebrating her birthday today by watching this stream instead of having her party with lots of music by Duran Duran and Prince, which sounded like a much better idea to me. Hello, everybody. Hello, Array of Emotions. It's been a bonkers week. It really has. It was 6 degrees here last night, and what that means, folks, is that my Virginia Creeper, known as Boston Vine to those of you in the United States, has gone this glorious shade of red. How about that? Isn't that amazing? Unfortunately, it hasn't got cold enough just yet to stop the lawn growing. So I've been doing gardening this week. And this week I learned that there's a bacterium in soil called Mycobacterium vaccae. And it was discovered in about 2010, 2011, if I remember right, that Mycobacterium vaccae is basically an antidepressant and could also act as a cognitive enhancer. So I did 3 hours gardening on my hands and knees in the back garden, clearing the flower bed. And goodness me, I felt better as a result. And no brace on the arm. So I'm hoping, touch wood, that doing stuff like that is good for my limbs. So, in the chat, lots of birthday wishes to Guppy Wigber, quite rightly so. Ryako Music says, girl, you should be getting wasted, lol. Guppy Wigber replies, don't worry, I will. Ryako Music replies to the reply, thank God. Have fun and do some crazy shit. The French Doge arrives. Hello, the French Doge. Hey, people. Good to see you all dropping in. Thank you very much. Atitlan, hello to you too, sir. Yeah. What have I been doing this week? Well, apart from gardening and getting high on natural endorphins in the soil, I've been doing a lot of music, and I've also been on a search for more free goodies for your VST delectation and delight, and I made sure, Ryako Music, that the ones that I looked at this week are available as Mac plugins as well as PC plugins. So rest assured. So, Array of Emotion says, what a surprise. No doubt about the fact that I've been doing music. This is my happy place. You know, this is where I spend my days, and we'll cover self-care in a minute or two, especially Mycobacterium vaccae and other ways of making yourself feel good. But housekeeping first. If you're following me on Twitch, thank you very much. Shout out to Chris Hansen69 and Justy, who have both followed me on Twitch in the last 7 days. That's much, much, much appreciated. Thank you very much. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you're seeing the splendidly edited and professionally tweaked version, which has far less of me staring into space and going, so, which apparently I do very regularly and without realizing I'm doing it. If you're watching on YouTube, then it would be really nice if you followed me, and even better if you clicked on that little like button at the bottom. If you follow me, there's a little bell icon which tells you when I upload new stuff to YouTube, and at the moment I'm doing that at least twice a week because I'm sad and I had no life. So, what's going on? Rave Emotion says, well, it's that or going, Yeah, I need to work on my camera behaviour, on-camera behaviour. But, at least it's natural and it's me. And after 20 episodes of this show, yes, you heard that right. This is show number 20. I guess you're pretty used to the way I run things over here. So, let's consult me notes, because I actually wrote loads of notes this week. What's been going on musically? Well, for a start, Labs, Spitfire Audio's sort of skunk works, have done it again. As of about 3 hours ago, they've dropped a new Labs plugin. It's called Textural Pads, and it's Mark Summerall sampling a selection of instruments at home during lockdown. So there's bass guitar, which he's bowed. There's all sorts of other stuff. And needless to say, I've already installed it, and it sounds pretty lovely. So very, very pretty. You get, what do you get? You get 6 different main patches, which seem to be an odd selection of names. Deneb's a star. Hiraeth and Saudade are Welsh and Portuguese names for homesickness. Petrichor's wet rock after rain. And Fern's a hot wind that blows from Germany into Italy in the spring and melts all the snow. Lovely. Osini is Polish for autumn. So that was Deneb. What's Fern like? It's rather nice. And you can hear that hot wind, can't you? That's rather lovely. So what else have we got? Hiraeth or Hireth, Welsh for longing for a place that doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of apt. So that's definitely treated piano. Atitlan66 says Labs sounding good again. They really do knock it out of the park with these, and I find it amazing that they're just offering them all for free. So this is Oseni. So again, I'm definitely thinking I'm going to be using stuff like this. Petrichor, so rainstorm smell. Can hear that little pattering of rain in the background of it as well. Can you hear it? That's rather splendid. And Saudade, or Saudade, or however you want to pronounce it. So yeah, literally got the email from Spitfire Audio about that about 3 or 4 hours ago and installed it immediately and have been playing with it off and on since then. and very, very taken with it. I just love their stuff. I love the way that Spitfire Audio work, and I have to admit, I actually went back and bought a couple of their low-end plugins, which I forget. I think they're called Origins. Let me just check. If I go to the Spitfire site, I think they have a bunch of like budget plugins. So I'll share my screen with you. Where did I find it? See, the ones I bought Epic Strings. What are these called? They're called Originals, not Origins. So the chat has now gone down the rabbit hole, and they're discussing the English synth pop band from the 1990s, Yazoo, which was Alison Moyet and Vince Clarke, who had previously been in Depeche Mode. And I can't believe, Ryako Music, that you've never heard of Yazoo. There is an absolute glorious piss take of Yazoo, featuring Yazoo, that Dawn French did for Comic Relief many, many years ago. Go check it out on YouTube. It's brilliant. So, yeah, I'm afraid I bought a couple of plugins, or may have bought a couple of plugins this week. So I got Epic Strings because Epic, and I got Epic Brass and Woodwinds, which is also Epic. But, I mean, they're 30 quid each. So Atitlan explains, Yaz to those in the US because of a name clash. I did not know that. But Upstairs at Eric's is a classic album, it has to say. Guppy Wogber says, oh, bummer, I have to go, guys. Thank you for streaming again and singing to me. Good night, everyone. Jules, have an absolutely splendid birthday evening and go and get drunk and dance your ass off, because you're only 18 once. So have a good time. Right. So, yes, I've been spending a little bit of money, well, you know, a bit of money on these things because I've been working on a number of pieces and I needed to fix things which weren't working for me. So that's kind of one of the things that I've been doing this week, and we'll get to that. So, Labs, virtual synthesizer, free. All that you have to do is install the Spitfire Audio. Excuse me, it's my Windows protection thing. You basically install the Spitfire Audio app, which is this. Once you've installed the Spitfire app, it has a Labs tag on it. There it is. And see, I've got them all. There are a lot. So there's closing in on 30 different free virtual instruments that you can download, and every single one of them is worth downloading. Well, I mean, if they're free, arguably, then there's no worth applied at all, but they are worth installing. So Spitfire Audio Labs, latest one, textural pads, as you've heard, really, really lush. Drop a whole bunch of reverb on that, possibly a bit of compression, and that's going to sound gorgeous. So I promised various people on various chats over the last week that I had a bunch of cool virtual instruments to show you this week, and wasn't expecting Labs to be one of them, but there you go. So that's one down. Is that the only virtual instrument that I'm going to show you this week? No, it's not, because the first one that I'm going to show you, again, it's free. Again, it works for macOS and Windows, 64-bit. If you're old school, you can even install it 32-bit on Windows. This one is also available for Linux as a 64-bit VST3. And it's been around for a while, but it had a massive upgrade in August that I wasn't aware of. In fact, on the 2nd of August, they dropped a whole new upgrade of this to GitHub, which is a free open source repository, source codes, installers and everything else. And it's called Surge. Anybody heard of it? Anybody using it? If so, please let me know. I need tips. It's gorgeous. What I really, really like about it, and if I fire it up in Ableton, here it is that it's one of the few VSTs I have where they've taken some care over the UI for people with non-standard screen resolutions. So the screen that I'm actually running this on is 2180, so it's more than HD, but it's not 4K. And watch this. Look at that. And yes, it's got a dark theme, which I installed immediately. So it's got a scalable interface. It's really, really complex. It's got loads of good stuff in it. It has absolutely bucket loads of presets. I mean, they've nested the preset menu items just because there's that many of them. And what does it sound like? Well, you can see, no doubt, there that that patch is called Jump. So does it sound like Jump? Well, let's find out. Let's just enable that. Here we go. That's, Atitlan says, nothing like. Yeah, it's stuffed full of gorgeous polysynth sounds. I mean, the sort of emulations of old Korgs. I have... Array of Emotion says, you need a guitar. It's funny you should say that. I noticed in... let me show you. I have been checking out various music websites' sales, and sadly, I noticed this week that Gear for Music were having a sale, and one of the things on their sale items was a guitar. Has it dropped off their menu? It looks like it probably has. I mean, it's almost inevitable that I'll get one day. Ooh, Theremin. I do want a Theremin. So yes, as Array of Emotion says, I will end up with a guitar. It's almost inevitable. Yeah, Surge is stuffed full of gorgeous, gorgeous sounds, including splits, which I can then use for the Korg M3. Various, I don't recognise any of these names, but I have heard of Roger Lynn. Roger Lynn, who was the inventor who invented the Linn drum, has moved on to a performance instrument called the Linstrument, Linn instrument. And if you check out the Linstrument's webpage, he's using his keyboard controller, the Linstrument, to play synth. Surge is the synth he's using, so Roger Lynn likes it a lot. What are his presets like? Well, there's a nice whirl, it's a piano. and what was the other one there? A whole bunch of leads. Yeah, maybe it's... They're all quite cool. Oh, that's nice. That's not bad. So you get the idea. Ryako Music says, is there still a demand for guitars? Oh, hell yes. And also, if you had to name your own instrument, what would its name be? Gonna have to think about that. So I installed Surge late one night after hanging. Yes, M Nights, this is the free plugin stream. So to recap, Labs 64-bit have just dropped a new one called Textural Pads, which is lovely. And then we've just been talking about Surge, which is a free 64-bit VST plugin for macOS and Windows and Linux that has all sorts of interesting possibilities. And hello there to you too. Reverb says, I hope the demand for guitars does not mean there's a return in popularity of hair metal. And what's wrong with that, might I ask? So if we just put this aside to one moment, so I'm going to save this and we'll just call it, because I'm still making stuff for 5090, and this will be the 56th track. So I installed Surge late at night, and the Rave Emotion says hair metal is rubbish, and you know it. Well, I've got a soft spot for one or two hair metal bands, but yes, you're right. Certainly most of the LA ones were appallingly bad. I installed Surge late at night, and it really, really rather took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be. I've just loaded the wrong bloody file, haven't you? And now Ableton's just going to say not responding for 5 minutes. Atitland66 says, if it wasn't for Stock Aitken and Waterman, hair metal would be the worst of the 80s. Again, I have a soft spot for some Stock Aitken and Waterman tracks because Kylie. So yeah. And I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but Thomas Schaffenacre, who is one of the BBC weather reporters, was doing his weather report on the BBC Breakfast Show, and they were talking about Rick Astley. And Thomas, who tends to say what he thinks before thinking about whether he ought to or not, and said, yeah, never really rated him much. And unfortunately, Rick Astley was there. So, good old Thomas. Atitland says, yes, me too. Not Kylie until post-SAW. Bananarama's Stock Aitken and Waterman stuff was good. The bizarre thing, believe me, we noticed it at the time, is that if you took one of Kylie's Stock Aitken and Waterman singles and rather than playing it at 45 RPM, played it at 33 1/3 RPM, it sounded exactly like Rick Astley. So we begin to suspect that the two may actually be the same person, with actors just representing them on television screens. Anyway, if I switch me out of the picture and we just have top PIP, here we have what I ended up with. You can see I embraced Surge rather enthusiastically the day after I downloaded it, and I was playing with Surge until, oh God, at least 1:30 in the morning because virtual instrument and synthesizer, and rather glorious synthesizer. So first track that I came up with, I was playing with its bass lines, which have sequences and synth sort of stuff built into them, and this is what I used. So you get the idea. Array of Emotions talks about Rick Astley and says, I have it on good authority, he's never going to give you up. He's never going to let you down either. Ryoko Music says, I also heard that he'll never run around or desert you. He's one of the good guys. So again, one of those lucky happenstance inspirational things where I get a new sound and it's and I pick it up and I'm off and running with it. And this has been very much the case with Surge over the last few days. So that was me bass line. Next thing I came up with was a drum track to it. Chris, you just got rickrolled. Hey, I was a participant in it. I love the fact at Macy's Thanksgiving parade last year, they actually had a float that rickrolled everybody watching the parade, and they had Rick Astley on the float singing it to rickroll the entire city of New York. I thought it was glorious. Fair play to Mr. Rick Astley, who is a distinctly pop genius. So fight me if you disagree with that. Ryoko Music says that's so brilliant. He is. And he just embraces his reputation and subverts it and turns it on its head, and it's glorious. So let's have a brief diversion, because this show is all about the diversions. I've been doing lots of commenting this week because I'm trying to get up to 400 comments by the weekend on 5090. 5090, if you're not familiar with it, is the songwriting challenge where you have to write 50 songs in the 90 days between the 4th of July and the 1st of October, which is next week. So panic, 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 unless you're a smug git like me, who has now got 55 songs uploaded to the 5090 site. We'll come on to that in a moment. But yeah, the whole thing about 5090, and if you're watching and you want critiques of your material, then I cannot think of a more amenable and embracing and communal group hug site than 5090 and its sister challenge that takes place over the month of February, which is called February Album Writing Month. If you want your songs listened to, and that's a major achievement in itself, but also analysed and suggestions for improvement or just reactions to the music that you make, join 5090, join February Album Writing Month, and become a part of the community. And the biggest part of the community is supporting the other people who are taking part. Gunner Zero Recall, good evening, sir. I will turn caps lock on specially for you. Yeah, if you want your music analysed and critiqued, or just generally appreciated, join 5090, join February Album Writing Month. And the French Doge, I know, joined last month, and I've really been enjoying his amazing blend of Vocaloid pop, EDM, and death metal. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. Oh, believe me, it is. So De French Doge is on 5090. Go check out his stuff. Go check out his stuff on Bandcamp. So be part of the community, listen to other people's stuff, comment on other people's stuff. And I was doing that this week. And an old buddy of mine, who we've been friends on 5090 for many years, is Mike Skliar. Now, Mike has been rather angry about the current political situation in the States, as you can see by some of these lyrics. If you can read those lyrics, I hope you can read those lyrics. So I was the first person to comment on this, and I said, properly controlled, anger is a fantastic creative engine, and the energy that it can impart to music is extraordinary. Punk arose from anger at the previous generation's complete lack of interest in their successors, not just musically, but more importantly, societally. And so much of rap stems from anger at inequality and privilege. This track seethes with rage, quite rightly in my opinion, and I can hear the emotional commitment in every line. Grand stuff, and the reverb on those drums is the perfect treatment. So go over to 5090, check Mike Skliar's songs out. This song is called The Stages of Fascism version 2. He has flagged it not safe for work because he's angry and he lets that anger show. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, because as a kid, I had it literally beaten into me that showing emotion or letting your emotions govern your actions was a surefire way of getting clobbered. So as I grew up, I learned to keep my emotions very much in check. And it's been very difficult as an adult growing out of the repression that caused, which is kind of why, I've suffered from depression for 20 odd years. And that's another emotional thing that I'm seeing a lot of people at the moment on 5090 saying, I'm really struggling. I'm really down. I'm really stressed. I'm really not in a good place with how the world is and how I'm reacting to it. And all I can say to those people is we all go through bad patches. We all go through phases of feeling down, of not having energy, of not getting enjoyment from life, of feeling crap. And Ryako Music says, I'm tired and feeling crap now. And Ryako Music says, same. And it really, everybody goes like that for a week or two. But if you've been feeling like that for a month or 2 months or 6 months, then I have to say you need to go speak to your doctor, because that shit's not good for you. And I put up with that shit for the best part of 20 years. And the only time I really got myself sorted and got my head together and got not cured, but at least got treatment and support for it, was because Mel, Ryako Music, actually noticed what a state I was in and staged an intervention. And if she hadn't done, I do not know whether I would be here talking to you tonight. So I owe Mel a tremendous debt for basically turning around and saying, dude, you need to get your head together because you are not in a good place. And a lot of people are in that same state. Ryako Music says it wasn't quite an intervention. It kind of was. It had the same effect anyway. And thank you so much for it. But to repeat, if you are in a bad place now, and you've been in a bad place for at least 2 weeks, if not longer, then it's probably about time you saw somebody who can help you maybe manage or mitigate that problem. And yeah, all I can say is do it. If you need to talk about doing it before you do it, then I'm here. Emails headfirstonly@gmail.com. Get in touch. If you need advice, I am here to not give you good advice because I am not a psychiatrist, but I can give you the support and I can listen to what you're going through and suggest ways forward. Please do that. Please talk to people, because the alternative is sliding down a very, very deep dark hole. And I've had very close family members go that way, and they're no longer with us. And if they'd felt able to talk to the other members of their family in a rational way, then maybe they would still be here. So, yeah, it's about being prepared to listen. And if anybody out there watching this is struggling, then give me a shout. Seriously. So, back to emotions, positive emotions, negative emotions. Mike's song is very much about channeling energy. And as a result of that, I thought, yeah, maybe that's kind of somewhere I need to investigate, because it was an emotion that I recognized in myself. So here, we're back with track number 55 that I've done for 5090. And this one's called This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things. And the anger that I felt as a result of Rave Emotion says, did you say 55? Yep, I did. The anger that I felt, both in the way that my country is being run at the moment and just the behaviours that I see every day. Going shopping, people. I went to the supermarket and the cashier had said that people were telling her that because they were wearing a mask, they no longer need to observe social distancing. Michael Gove is now basically saying Kent will have to be walled off for customs and immigration purposes because of the absolute clusterfuck that Brexit has become. And Brexit, let's face it, only took place because the EU brought in or announced that they were going to bring in tax avoidance legislation that would stop people not paying taxes. And suddenly Brexit became a thing. And this country really has gone to the dogs as a result of this. And people think it's their patriotic duty to support Brexit. It's bullshit. Atitlan 66 says Kent is going to be the world's biggest truck stop. I see they actually brought in what's known as Operation Stack tonight because the organisation or lack of in border control between the UK and France is so bad that they now have to use miles of the M2 motorway as a truck car park to deal with the backlog of lorry drivers trying to get to and from the continent. It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. It's a shambles. And this is the country that we live in at the moment. So as you can tell, there's quite a lot of emotion welling up in this because I'm angry. And this week, I'm just too tired to keep it in. And that surge bass line, which I'll play you again. So you get the idea. I don't do rap. I don't do hip hop or anything else like this. But if I was going to do something really shouty and angry or just sarcastic because I'm British, we don't really get angry. We get vituperatively sarcastic. So I thought, okay, that's the way I'm going to do it. So I came up with a very, very shouty drum line, which is Superior Drummer 3, which is what I normally use. And if I look at the patch, we're using the Metal Foundry because that's one of the Superior Drummer expansions, and it is very, very shouty, hence Skull on Fire. That tells you all you need to know about the drum sound that I've got for this. So let's now play that bass line with the drum sound. You kind of get the idea where this is going. Atitlan says, have you ever tried running a drum loop through Vocal Synth 2? Hey, that's interesting. I've got a related trick, which I'm going to show you in a second, but Vocal Synth 2 with drums. I'm going to have to try that. So drums are nice. They're huge, even with Ableton's drum bus transient shaping enhance processing on it and a bit of lift to give the brass and the overheads a bit more presence. I thought, yeah, there's something missing. So I cut and pasted the entire drum pattern and also played it in one of Ableton's own drum racks. So I effectively have two drummers playing the same thing. So this is the Ableton drums, which is kind of silly. So what I then did was I added a bit of beat repeat and filter delay, moving 356, which is another favourite of mine. To mix things up a bit. And a whole bunch of extra surge synths for various parts. And as you can see, Elbow's not got a brace on. Gardening meant, I mean, it's still, I can still feel it's not perfect, but I'm back playing guitar, and I really wasn't expecting to be doing that this week, I'll tell you. So that cheered me up no end. So there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different guitar tracks. And as a response to Atitlan's thing about Vocal Synth 2 on the drums, what I've done with the guitar tracks is that I've used Isotope's free, it's a free download and it's well worth getting, Vocal Doubler, only I'm using it on the guitars. All right, I'm using it on the vocals as well, but Vocal Doubler on guitars is quite interesting. If I solo the guitars and just play you the beginning wah wah, which is a Stevie Ray Vaughan patch on my Zoom G3 guitar effects pedal, and I think I was playing the Ibanez RG 770. So So you get the idea. It's very Steve Vai, and yes, that's kind of the vibe I was going through. I mean, it's just a razor wire distorted electric guitar with a wah-wah pedal. And after coming up with all that and putting it all together, then I'm just going to play you what the end result sounds like. This is probably the most aggressive that I've got during 5090, and I've marked it as a favourite because it's just so unlike any of the other stuff I've done. Here we go.
Come. The country's being run the way he would, by a demented senile bum. He's gone unchallenged, though we know we should. Thinks we support what he's become. He and his friends think they deserve the best. They want it served up on a plate. They can leave nothing for the rest. Ain't that what makes their country great? Doesn't care that those in charge confessed that what they do is based on hate. Anytime the stupid people think that they should live like kings, they start to call their neighbors sheeple, covered what endeavor brings. This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. Think they're too smart to take instruction in how to save each other's lives. They simply revel in destruction. Somehow they think they will survive. It has a sinister seduction, at least until the bill arrives. Anytime that stupid people think that they should live like kings, they start to call their neighbors sheeple, uncovered what endeavor brings. This is why we can't have nice things.
a whole bunch of stuff that I need to catch up on chat. So yeah, lots of people. Gunner Zero Recalls very kindly says, has anyone ever told you that you have a great voice for radio or a podcast? I'd listen to you all day. Mate, sure, SM7B. That's what it is. It's not actually me. It's this mic, which is, I mean, it's splendid is the only word I can have for it. I absolutely love this thing. But let's move on. So lots of stuff about weak-ass tax avoidance legislation at that. Then we actually start talking. Riaka Music says, did you do a high-pass filter on your vocals? You sound significantly less bassy. Yeah, vocal processing on this, completely different. I didn't even use this. I went back to the Shure Super 55, which is what I've used for about the last 5 years before I got this year for vocals and just podcasting and everything else. And as you can see on the vocal lines, I deliberately rode them really hot so that they're not clipping a lot, but they are clipping. And that was intentional. And then again, I wanted to, sorry, just because OCD, I just want those all back how they were. I did a lot of unusual vocal processing on the vocal submix. So again, we have Isotope's free vocal doubler, which is kind of subtle on this one. Normally I use it around about sort of 60-70%. It's only down at 35% on this. So I also, with using the Super 55, which doesn't have a pop shield, was clobbering the microphone with plosives. So RX7, again from Isotope, wound up to the max to get rid of the plosives that I was smacking into the Super 55, certainly on the choruses. Then we've got Nectar 3, which is Isotope's vocal processing stuff. Pitch correction's not on. I mean, I'm speaking. Who cares what pitch it is? Lots of EQ, a bit of a lift at about 8K, and I rolled off pretty much everything below 150 hertz or so. Shitloads of compression. Shitloads of vocal saturation. Teensy-weensy bit of harmony, because that's kind of what Nectar thought I ought to have. And the Dimension processor is pretty much wound up as well. And then to sweeten everything, Neutron, which I tend to use on submixes anyway, a gate to get rid of most of the breaths and the intakes and just the general noise, the sculptor to add a bit of punch to the vocals, more EQ to lift around the top end of where I was starting to roll things off, exciter to really warm the mids, and then 2 more stages of compression, because compression, you can see the ratio there, 6.7 to 1, and then a little bit more subtle at 4.3 to 1 for a second stage of compression. And that really squeezed and scrunched my vocals down in a way that seemed to fit. And yeah, it sounds hot. The roll off on the bass, on the vocals, I wanted that kind of overdriven, almost megaphone type sound to it. Riaka Music says that's a lot of compression. I tend to do a lot of compression, but what I'm doing these days is I will do not a lot of compression at once, but less compression, but do it multiple times. And I'll use different compressors because they have different behaviors. Some of them color the sound. And again, here we go. I'll go back to screen 1. I've tried using this a few times this last week, I found this. I don't know if you've come across this one before. I'll drop it on the path. Molot. It really is a bonkers free compressor, but it does unpredictable things to your sound, and in most cases I've wound it up and thought, do I actually like what it's doing? And deciding that, yeah, kind of actually for what I was doing, then no, I've not left it in. So more comments in chat. Riaka Music says, this is a really nice departure from your normal style. The French Doge says, instead of the splash cymbal at the end, I'd use the ride hit. Hardly, it'd fill a bit of the space. That's a really good idea. I need to tweak this. I've been gradually cutting stuff off because you notice that I turned surge off. I also had another guitar chord which I've cut back. So I'm still tweaking, and I think I will probably do what you suggest. Riaka Music says, I started using some of my isotope plugins and I'm a slow learner. They take a bit of getting used to, but what I found is, and I did an online course with Bobby Ozinski a couple of weeks ago, and he suggested a number of techniques which I tried as a replacement for Ozone and Neutron on submixes and then Ozone on the master. And I keep coming back to Ozone. I love what it does to stuff. And again, if I show you what's on this, there's I rolled off the bass on the vocals, but everything else, especially that kick drum, Ozone decided, hey, you really need to ramp up the bass, dude, and rolled off the treble because I guess the distortion from the vocals sounds a bit hot. Dynamics, there's a little bit going on, but I'm not as much as I have done sometime. Dynamic EQ, there's a few problematic resonances in various instruments like the guitars and parts of the funky techno drum track. So there's a few resonances that I'm using dynamic EQ to cut out. I wanted to really give the drums an aggressive feel, so I'm using master rebalance, which I have to say kills my CPU count. If I drop master rebalance on a track, I can hear my computer go as a result. But I like what it does. I don't use it very often because it makes my computer sigh and groan. And then Maximizer was saying, yeah, that's loud enough, mate. You don't need to make it louder. But I pushed it down 0.7 dB to really make it shouty. And another isotope plugin, Insight 2. Mel, I don't know if you've used this at all, but in terms of showing you what your mastering is doing to your track and how loud it is, Insight is fascinating, and I've started using it over the last couple of weeks.
Mistakes. Think they're too smart to take instruction in how to save each other's lives. They simply revel in destruction. Somehow they think they will survive. It has a sinister seduction, at least until the bill arrives. Anytime that's...
So you get the idea. So it's telling me that my loudness unit full scale is averaging out at about minus 10.8, and iTunes and some of the others, if you look at Ozone, will normally aim at 14, minus 14 LUFS. But as Bobby Ozinski was saying on his course, these days you send your music out to any streaming service and they are going to mess with it, and they are going to do stuff with it, and they are going to completely ignore the settings that you've used. So just go for it. Make it how you want it to sound. So Ryaka Music says, do you always take out breaths? I leave them in sometimes if I think they work. The thing is, your vocal style really benefits from hearing the process of you singing, because you have a voice that is made for singing. I do not. And the fact is, when I'm doing vocals, the reason I've got the big pop shield on this is because I will normally sing pretty much with my nose against the pop shield. And if I do that, then this mic picks up everything, and it's not pleasant. Mouth pops, clicks, tongue clicks, breathing in, breathing out, sniffing, and I have been really suffering with dried out sinuses for the last couple of weeks. It sounds awful. So I quite often drop RX7's breath control in. I haven't done on this one, but I do, and I don't, it's not I do it, it's I have to do it to get an intelligible vocal mix out of it. I also savagely gate things. So you can see from, let's go to, whoops. If I go to the, no, that's the guitar one. Chris, pay attention, see what you're doing. Vocal submix, here you are. So you can see the gate opens at minus 22 dB and it shuts at minus 31.7. And just watch the trace through a verse and you'll see why, exactly why I'm using it.
He and his friends think they deserve the best. They want it served up on a plate. Take what they can, leave nothing for the rest. Ain't that what makes their country great? Doesn't care that those in charge confessed.
And in fact, watching that and listening to it, then you can hear, or I can hear, a little vocal click at the end of saying great. So I obviously did something with my mouth that I shouldn't have. So if I'm going to release this on an album or on Bandcamp, I will go back and I will probably edit all those clicks out. And rather than using a gate, I will literally go into a track, zoom in on it, and see it. There it is. Look. So if I play that,
What makes their country great?
there's the click. So what I'll probably do is split that vocal sample and just roll that back to get rid of it. So now,
Ain't that what makes their country great? Doesn't care that those in
that's much better to me. So I'm going to save that and I'll render that out and do another version of this on the 5090 site, because that sounds much better. And M. Knight says, unwanted mouth sounds are annoying AF. Absolutely agree. The gate in Neutron is really good. And there is also an Isotope plugin, which I use a lot, which is one of the RX7 ones, which is mouth declick. And when I put that on a track and run it through, it gives you a count of how many it's processed and got rid of during the vocal performance. And with me, because I'm an old guy. I mean, I've still got my own teeth, but I normally end up with a click count in the hundreds. So Atitlan says, Ableton not showing on screen for us. Yeah, sorry, mate. This is one thing that I keep doing, and it's because my screen setup is suboptimal. So what I've done, there you are. You can see there's the click. It's tiny, but it's enough to register. So all I did, split that vocal take, roll it back, gets rid of it. And that sounds far more satisfying to me. So I'll go back and render this again at the end of the Twitch live stream and upload it to 5090. But I had fun with that. I really had a lot of fun with that, and I was surprised, and I marked it as a favourite. But it all came from just having that new synth, of that synth, that bass line. The whole track appeared in my head as a result of that. Wobby123, good evening. Don't worry about being late. It's lovely to see you. Hello, hello. We've been talking about free synths. So I was just saying that this track appeared exclusively as a result of just having this fantastic free VST synth called Surge. So it does wavetable, it does frequency modulation, it does all sorts of stuff worth getting, and it's an open source VST, so it resides on GitHub of all places. So let me just show you that. It's well worth getting, and again, as I say, raving about it because it's got a scalable interface and you can select it as being dark. Ashitland66 says, playing through a bunch of new patches always inspires something. Yes, absolutely. And I have to say, at the moment, I'm absolutely spoiled for new patches because, so we've covered Labs, who have got a new textural VST that they dropped this afternoon. We've covered Surge. I actually have another free synthesizer to demonstrate to you this evening. And again, M9 says, I have to have it head off. Hope you all have a good evening / afternoon / day. Good to see you, man. And thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hello. So, final synthesizer that I'm going to cover today is, and what is it? I mean, really, what is it with synthesizer designers and names? Surge, yeah, I can kind of see that. But Cheese Machine? Really? And this one doesn't scale, sadly. It's a kind of string machine. It's vaguely Solina-ish. And it's rather splendid. And again, it's free. It's available for macOS. It's available for Windows. And you get a nice bunch of presets with it. This is the one that you get straight out of the box. It's the 80s. What else have we got? So you've got some nice bass lines. Nice resonance on that. Now, I'm guessing SH there is not sample and hold, but it's a shout out to Roland's old SH 101, that plasticky grey synthesizer. Very, very nearly bought one. It actually came with a strap and a controller, so you could rather infeasibly play it like a guitar, but it just looked silly. And again, 200, 250 quid synth back in the mid-80s, they're going for silly money now. Not sure I like the key click on that. Wobby says, my dog is called Cheesy, but I didn't name her. And she's actually done a cameo on one of your songs this year, which I thought was absolutely delightful. She needs to develop her vocal career, because I'm sure she's got a promising career in front of her. So lots of nice bass. It is very, very 80s. And yeah, they acknowledge the clicks there. That's actually called clicky lead. So it's got potential. If, like me, you live in the 1980s when you record music, because I mean, you've heard my stuff. You know how 80s I get. The French Dose says, there was a metal band who used their dog as the main vocalist. Not joking. Seriously, I need to know about this band. I'm a metalhead, and as Gunnar Zero Recall noticed, my influences are people like Devon Townsend. I need to know about any metal band who has a dog as their lead vocalist. I really do. So lots of spiffy leads. Oh, a musette. Yeah. I think the Korg's got a better musette than that. Steel drums? Seriously? Really? Doesn't sound like it to me. Let's go up an octave. And again, that's called Etorki High Bells. That's K-Ninus. I'm writing this down. I am not missing out the opportunity to find out about a band that has a dog as a lead singer. This is brilliant. Thanks for this, mate. You keep on coming up with brilliant things that completely take me down rabbit holes. I mean, the Glitch Machines Fracture. My as I said on your soundboard, my work rate using synths has dropped through the floor because, and in fact, let's do it now while we're here. So what De French Doge recommended to me is a sound processor that is made by Glitch Machines, which is called Fracture. So Fracture is kind of granular resynthesis type stuff. And as you can see, there are bucket loads of presets. And I've got to the point where I'll just take a synth line and then just go through the presets on Fracture going, oh, that sounds good. So if I turn it off, remember, this is the sound we were using. And yeah, with Fracture, so that patch is called AW Techer. I wonder who that's referring to. So you can change the wet and dry, and I've just realised my picture's in the way. There you go. So you can see it now. So this one's called Chaperone. It's about 50% dry wet. Which is, yeah. So some of them are more usable than others. And the chat is now off with De Fresh Doge, an array of emotions, who is a lifelong metalhead, just going off down the rabbit hole of obscure metal bands, and I haven't heard of any of them. Cylon Laser, Battlestar Galactica reference, Delay Time Prince. Ooh, that's nice. So you get the idea. I will happily spend 45 minutes just going through Fracture presets or occasionally just tweaking stuff, because I like listening to sounds. A lot of people are saying, why do your patches fit together so well? And it's kind of because I will obsessively spend 40 minutes with Ableton's loop brace, just repeating a verse or a chorus, and I'll have the MIDI notes already recorded, and I'll then just step through sounds on a synth until I go, oh, that works. So there's some fairly nice stuff on this. And Portamento doesn't get used enough. That's very Vangelis, isn't it? So, I thought that said Kabiku wide smell for a second, but it's wide swell. Oh, that's got quite a nice phase added to it. Right, chat has now deteriorated into Belgian heavy metal bands, so I'm not even going to go there. I'm just going to sit here playing my synth. So yeah, Cheese Machine 2, in fact, and I was asking why cheese? Because that is not the only cheese-based synthesizer free that I've downloaded this week. Because if I go to my VST3s, oh no, it's only a VS. That's right, yeah, it's a UE VST, and they said, yeah, don't install the VST3 because it falls over. So where's it gone? This is the only trouble. I've got so many darn plugins now that it's very difficult to keep track of where I've put them all. So where's my UE Cheese Machine 3? This really is getting out of control, isn't it? I can't see it. Oh, there it is. There it is. I'm not going mad. So there we go. This one's called Triple Cheese. Again, it doesn't scale. And this one is what they classify as a luscious, cheesy comb synthesizer. You really needed to know that, didn't you? And presets. of which there we go. You notice, I mean, this is just how sad UE's people are, that all the presets are cheese related. Yup. Difference Dose says, but why triple cheese? Well, because cheese 2 is already taken, I guess. But wouldn't you want triple cheese on your pizza? It's kind of subtle. It's the clangers. Where's the soup dragon? Ryako Music says, I want all the pizza. God, I'm cutting down on carbs. DeFresto says, triple cheese minimum on pizza. I always go for 4. Oh. And Wobby just says, ooh. So if you haven't watched Oliver Postgate and Small Films' classic series on alien life forms, The Clangers, please do, because it is glorious. They did a new version, sadly, after Oliver had passed away a few years ago. And the choice of narrator that they got for the new shows was perfect, because they got Michael Palin. Isn't that great? Oh, yeah, let's not go down the children's television rabbit hole. So here we've got Gruyere. So I'm getting the feeling this is probably more for embellishment than a kick-ass bass line, but I could be wrong. It's got idiosyncrasies. It's certainly its own thing. Ryako Music says, is there brie? No. So, this is obviously an opportunity for us to supply further presets for this synth. I'm definitely a Stilton man. And it is a polysynth, which surprises me, because playing some of those early ones, I thought, yeah, that's got to be a monosynth, but it's not. But that is. The French Dose says, no blue cheese. I love blue cheese. Stilton is... Oh, I haven't had Stilton. Bacon and Stilton sandwich. Toasted bacon and Stilton sandwich. Oh, food of the gods, man. Cheesy flute. We're back to the clangers again. So, but there will, I'm sure... That's not a saxophone, that's an accordion. There will be something in here that I will eventually discover and decide I can make a track out of. And Wobby says, camembert. Baked camembert with French bread with proper butter on it. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, that's got a decent 80s feel to it, hasn't it? That could work in something. I like the echo, and it's the synth that's doing all the echo and the reverb. It's not Ableton. That one's called Moaning Out of Tune. Okay. Nervously Melting. Now, kind of get that as a riser. That would work. Right, from obscure Belgian heavy metal bands, the chat is now cheese. And I'm trying very hard not to go down the cheese rabbit hole because I absolutely adore cheese. And I've been told I have to cut down because of my cholesterol levels and stuff like that, which is just not fair, which is why I have nothing other than a few slices of Dairy processed cheese in the fridge at the moment. Whereas normally I'd have Stilton and cheddar, maybe a bit of Gorgonzola, probably Camembert, and definitely Somerset Brie. Somerset Brie and cranberry sauce in croissants. Again, why is it that whenever I'm in the vicinity of Riaco music, we always end up with food-related discussions? It's Riaco music says, that's so depressing, Chris. Yeah, I know. Because food. It's, But on the other hand, I am 40 pounds lighter than I was 2 years ago. This one's called That Cheesy Jazz. Yeah. Cheesy Jazz, triple funk alert. There's a nice chorus on that. Is that polyphonic? Yep. Oh, nice resonance sweep. Right, Array of Emotions. This is one for you. Hear the resonance sweep on this? So that's a fairly decent phaser in this. I like that. Wide synth. So again, nice chorus, yeah. Lactose intolerant, this one's called. Let's go down an octave. Oh, that's nice. Riaco Music says, try making tiny phyllo dough parcels with brie and crumb. Oh, God, yeah. Spanakopita. Oh, Greek cooking. I used to go out with a Greek girl and her mum's cooking was astonishing. Right, last one for this. I'll stop boring you with it and we can talk about cheese instead. This one's called Twonk. So it's got a big delay on it. Yeah, that'll work, won't it? So this is kind of how Eddie Van Halen used to do, what's the title of the track called? Cathedral. You get the idea. So we're now recapping conversations about poop from Mel's stream from last night when she was scoring Metropolis, and yeah, let's draw a veil over that, shall we? So there you go. 4, not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, but 4 different free VST plugins for you to make use of in your DAW of choice. And I'm going to go back to this Labs plugin because once again they've knocked it out the park with stuff for free, and it has a whole bunch of processing options on it. So it's got nice reverb on it, which I've got absolutely full to the brim, but I can also, right now it's full to the brim, I can also add delay to it. How about that? More delay. And let's put the release up. Yep, it does. Let's try me pitch ribbon. So if I swap views, see on the push you don't have a pitch bend wheel, you have this ribbon. So in the middle the two dots there are basically neutral pitch. So if I play something, so yep, the pitch bend does work. Let's, in fact, while we're here, as I've got it fired up, let's try it on the Zoom, on the Korg M3 as well. So the Korg is running, and it should send MIDI signals to Ableton. So let's try this. Didn't like that, did it? Have I just broken it? Let's try that again. Yep. So using the pitch bend wheel on the Korg appears to break the sampler. I'm guessing because what it's doing is it must that wasn't at 0, was it? So it's actually resetting the what will that be? It's either the dynamics or the expression it's setting at 0. So what if I use the ribbon controller instead? Bear with me a second. So if you guys watch this slider here, which is up at 100% right now, when I knock the pitch wheel, I'm going to bet you that drops to 0. So yeah, maybe it was just having a head fit. Ryako Music says, computer says no. That yeah, it's an odd thing. Wobby123 says dust. Yeah, very probably in here. Goodness me, I don't use my dust covers often enough. I really, really should. So I'm just checking my notes, and yes, so we've covered the self-care, and we've covered depression, and the fact that I know a lot of people out there in 5090 land are not having a good time of things at the moment, especially as here in the UK, they've just brought in still more restrictions on social gathering, and it looks very much like we are going to end up going back into lockdown, which is not a good thing. So look after yourselves. Right, so one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is, I'm just going to save this. Do you remember last week we were, or was it the 5090 show? I was talking about the swapping instrumentation, and I swapped the very nice synthesizer that I was using for a piano on a track which was called One by One. And it went bonkers because I'd left in Ableton's ubiquitous, and that's the actual name of the patch, ubiquitous MIDI arpeggiator. I thought, oh, that sounds like Beethoven. And that kind of stuck. So I saved it at the time and went back to it and completely pulled apart everything that I'd done for the original track. So let me take you back very, very briefly to the original track, which is called One by One. So this is the track that I originally started working on, that I called up in Ableton to demonstrate on the 5090 show. So here we go. So it's called One by One, and it was the Pendulate free VST synthesizer that uses the modeling of a coupled pendulum to produce very, very complex oscillator noises, and it's great fun. And so the original sounded like this. So that was the version that I came up with. What I did on the 5090 show was that rather than pendulate, which I have here, I said, well, it's easy. If you want a piano, then you just go to your local piano VST plugin and drop that in instead. And if I solo that track, what this then ended up with was this. Which is very quiet, and it's also actually the wrong track. So bear with me a second. That's Control Z. You need to rehearse, Chris. You really do. You should do this more often. Right, it's this track. So there's me ubiquitous MIDI sequencer, and rather than pendulate, I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm going to use Arturia's rather nice piano VST, which was this one. And I said, okay, let's, rather than an American piano, what we'll have is we'll have a German grand piano, which is slightly less grandiose, and the resulting noise sounded like this. So again, we're talking about how a sound or a patch or a pattern can set you off. And for me, that really set me off big time. And what happened is that after the 5090 show, when I was discussing this, it was Sunday's show, in fact, wasn't it? It was this Sunday's show. And I finished that show at about 11 o'clock at night. And we're back to self-care because I have not been looking after myself in terms of getting a decent night's sleep. Because I opened that Ableton set after the live stream and thought, I'll just spend half an hour playing with that. Yeah. To see where it leads. Where did it lead? It led to this. I took pretty much everything that I'd originally done and got rid of it. And you'll notice we now have the BBC Symphony Orchestra strings, and we also have the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover brass sections in it as well. And rather than it be called One by One, it is now called It's What Ludwig Would Have Wanted. And the originating track had 2 guitar tracks on it. This one has 5. Because guitars. I'm playing guitars again. And if I'm playing guitars again, then going to bed early tends to be abandoned because I go, oh, that's good. Oh, I'll just do. And so it was that I did not switch off this machine until 1:45 on Monday morning, which really isn't sensible. And what did I end up with? Well, it's this. So you get the idea. I'm not going to play. I mean, it does kind of find what it's good at doing and carries on doing it. But at 1:45 in the morning, I really had tired ears. And the original mix that I had, I'd used that Russian compressor on the brass section because I thought, oh, brass needs more oomph. And I'd killed the brass entirely. So it wasn't until Monday afternoon when I eventually woke up and had a pint of coffee to try and kickstart myself into some sort of cognitive normality that I went back to the track and listened to it and thought, oh dear. Because originally I'd used that Arturia V2 piano, and it kind of, with fresh ears, it sounded wrong. It sounded like a harpsichord. So if you notice, what I've got down here is actually just Ableton's out of the box grand piano, the grand piano mellow stretch, or a stretched mellow, I think it's called. And I dropped the chords in the sequence 2 octaves. So this is now playing between A0 and D2. So it's much, much lower. I also tweaked the ubiquitous MIDI sequencer down here so that it actually played longer notes and with a different step, and the notes were held longer, and lots of tweaking to make it sound more Beethoven-ish. And I think I did. If I solo the bass, the piano, so there's a nasty clack at the beginning of each chord, which I haven't figured out how to get rid of yet. But if I release this on an album, then I will have to do that. So the piano is completely different. But the brass, as I say, I'd squashed it completely. So I went back to it. I got rid of the Molot compressor, and I was kind of pleased with how the brass turned out, which is, again, it's the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. Here we go. Attilan says possibly a touch of early Queen about that bit. I was very, very definitely channeling in my inner Brian May. I listened to the chorus with just the guitar soloed, and there's no possibly about it. Loads of amplifier hiss on that, but I'm just sitting here playing this for you and just thinking, I've just played what is effectively a complete orchestral arrangement with a full symphony orchestra. And I've done that in my bedroom. And even this time last year, I'd have thought that was pushing it a bit. But that Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. And I have to admit that I went back, and there are a couple of I was saying I spent money this week. I went back, and Spitfire have a bunch of 29 quid packages. And one of them is called Epic Brass and Woodwinds. And no doubt you can guess that the other one, I used Intimate Strings was the other one that I bought, which is a fairly large string ensemble, and just drop those on the top of everything else. If I just sample or solo these, you can hear what they're doing. Which is rather pretty. And then if I switch to the horns, so Atilan says, I like that it's got the mic mixer from the full Spitfire orchestral plugins. Yeah, what I like about those two, 29 quid is something even I can afford. And because they're strings rather than what the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover Core and professional things do, where each instrument group is separated out and can be treated and mic'd and mixed and effected individually. With a little package like that, with the sort of downloadable, I think they're about 1.5 gigs each download, because it's an ensemble arrangement, it glues together. And I dropped them on the original mix of this that I'd done, which just used the Discover package. And the Discover package sounds great, but just with the addition of the combined voices. So if I solo the two submixes, so you now get both submixes, strings and brass, working together, the difference it made, I was staggered. So here we go. So I can certainly on the monitors. I don't know if you can hear that on the stream audio, but certainly on the monitors here, it's like, wow, that's quite a difference. DeFreshdo says, dual guitar is love, dual guitar is life. Mate, there are 4 different harmony tracks on that final ending section, because 4 different harmony tracks, because that's the way I go. Mel says it sounds quite somber. I think that's the cellos, which I love. I have a thing about cellos. I've always had a thing about cellos, and I get emails from various music retailers, and in a moment of madness this morning, I very nearly ended up ordering a student cello from Gear for Music because they were on sale. But luckily I saw sense and closed my web browser down and deleted the appropriate page. But I love cellos. They're just so mournful. And Wobby says, go for it. Cellos have fantastic tone, says Atitlan. I know, right? I just bloody love cellos. Ryako Music says, oh my God, you were going to buy a cello. Wobby says, Gear for Music now. I've got the desk coming at some point in the next month. That's my budget blown for the month. So no, maybe next year. One day I will eventually buy a cello, at which point I am compelled to mention the Rob Paravonian Pachelbel rant, because Rob Paravonian learnt cello as a child at school and was forced to play Pachelbel's Canon in D on the cello. And if you've not seen Pachelbel rant, then after I've finished here, go YouTube it, Google it, watch it on YouTube. It's hilarious because it turns out that the chord progression in Canon's, in the Pachelbel's Canon in D, has been used rather a lot in popular music. And Wobby says, yes, have seen that. Good. And Wobby says, oh God, tell me, and double bass, same. Yeah, Wobby, in case the rest of you don't know, Wobby actually has a full-size double bass, which I covet tremendously. I would love a double bass. Did you know that famed BBC film critic Mark Kermode has a band called the Dodge Brothers, and he plays slap upright bass in the aforesaid band? So, yeah, guy's a superstar. Ryako Music says, haven't seen that. Wobby, what? You've got 2? What? This I was not aware of. So, yeah, we are not worthy. How on earth do you fit 2 full-size double basses in your living space? And, an in bass and an out bass, says Wobby. That's, yeah, there's an album title in there somewhere. So that's in a 1-bedroom flat in Tottenham. That, much respect. There is someone who has their priorities sorted. Atitlan says, allow me to recommend the Martinu cello. Ooh. I write this stuff down now, because even though I'm recording all this and it will be on YouTube and everything, so we've got Caninus, the metal band, and we now have the Martinu cello concertos, and I will no doubt end up ordering those online in the next few days. Which reminds me of something else that I was going to cover. So you are possibly aware of some of the pack providers in Ableton. If I go back to Ableton, So in all my plugins and everything else, I've got all this ridiculous amount of stuff. But there are also packs here that a lot of them come with Ableton. Other ones you go to Ableton site. So if I go to Ableton site, and you go to the packs page, there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of packs that you can download. And if you've bought Live, a lot of them you don't even have to pay for. They're just part of the deal. I can highly recommend getting this one, which is currently on sale at £0. And if you buy it, they will send you a receipt for £0, called Spectral Textures. Sound designers take note. It will push your processor quite hard, but it is worth getting. So as you can see, there are dozens and dozens of these things. But what I want to call your attention to is these guys. They're called Pure Magnetic. So they offer a lot of packs. And I bought a couple over the years because I think whichever one it was that I bought, it really appealed to me. And I got on their mailing list. And some of the guys from Pure Magnetic have albums out. And the deal is they put the album on Bandcamp. And if you buy the album, you get a VST plugin that they used in the process of making the album, which is a really cool deal. So you literally get a 64-bit VST and you get an album's worth of material that was recorded with it. And I bought one today, and it's called Innervelt. So if I go to a new live set, and we'll not save any of the changes on this. So let's pick something fairly average. Average, he says. Well, I know what I meant. Let's have a nice Fender Rhodes from Arturia. So we'll get a nice mellow... Where's the sheep one? Sheeps, there we go. Which is, as the name suggests, a pretty Richard Wright animals sheep type patch. So if I play it... So it's a lovely, kind of mellow, very relaxed, in fact, especially for rave emotions. Let's bring the pace down a bit and relax and chill out with a nice bit of Fender Rhodes. That's really nice, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you like it. Okay, so that's fine. Rave Emotions, as I hoped he would. One word comment. Nice. Wobby says, please let us do a collab with that voiceover and Mellow Cheese. Oh, you've got it. Absolutely. I am so there for that. And if Wobby's okay with it, I will actually play something that Wobby and I did couple of days ago, which I had an absolute blast doing. Anyway, let's go back. So I've now got me nice mellow Fender Rhodes, and what I'm going to do to it is drop Pure Magnetic's Dark Haze machine, which is called Innervelt, on it, and listen what it's done to it. Let's. I think we might benefit from a little bit of compression on this, don't you? So I'm just going to pick a fairly standard. Let's just have a waves compressor. So I quite like the R compressor. Let's put that on there. So this will bring up. We don't want it too over the top, so make it loud is probably not going to be what we're onto it. So Master Electro Firm sounds about right for me. So all right, it's a bit of a delay, but let's whack up the output a bit, shall we? So Differential Doge, you will love this because it's like Fracture on steroids. So the memory bit actually cuts it into chunks and just does weird stuff with it in loops. Let's try another preset. This one's called Spiff. Ryako Music says the sound is freaking out Queenie. Oh no, that's not good. Let's try a different instrument then and see if if it's the Fender Rhodes that's doing it, because it is kind of. Let's try a Hammond, shall we? Can't really go wrong with a B3, can you? And we'll do my favourite, which is the Church of Zeppelin. So again, without Innervelt switched on, it's this. Let's put the compressor before Innervelt, see if that helps. And then with Innervelt on, so I'm guessing what you'd probably want to do with Innervelt is drop it on Ascend from from the Hammond. So let's do that. So let's move that up to there. So we'll take this as a send from the Hammond. We'll have it post effects, so we'll keep the compressor in. And then I'm just going to drag Innervelt off this track onto that track. So now the Hammond is just playing normally into a compressor, and we can turn it down a bit. We'll turn Innervelt up a bit, and so we're now getting two tracks working in parallel. And what's that sound like? Drop that down, drop that up. Turn the amplitude up a bit. That's beginning to do stuff. Let's put the compressor on that track as well, because it's not really working there, is it? Let's try that. Pre-effects. Oh, I know why we can't hear it, because I've got the track set to off. This is something I do all the bloody time. When I use an audio feed, I forget that if it's off, it won't bloody play. So if I turn this to in, now we'll hear it. So, yeah, that's quite aggressive, isn't it? What else have we got? Captain Crunch. The French Doge, good man. Okay, Innervelt is installed. Man, that did not take you long at all. I am very impressed by that. That's great. So, what else have we got? Echo Repeater, that sounds like could be promising. Ooh, yes. I kind of like that. So I haven't even listened to the whole album yet. I listened to a couple of tracks earlier, but rather taken with it. But Innervelt is just one of those bonkers tools where you just twiddle knobs and you have no idea what's going to happen, but you know it will sound really interesting. I mean, in terms of sound designers, put that on Atmos or a low in fact, why don't we try that? Let's try low cellos with that, because we're back to cellos again, because I have cellos on the brain at the moment. So we'll get rid of the Hammond. Instead of that, we'll go back to Spitfire Audio. Where's Spitfire Audio gone? BBC Symphony Orchestra. And we'll have the cellos, or the celli. And let's see what this sounds like. That compressors. Let's try it without the compressor at all. Random anything. I love it. Asitlan says, sounds like it's a combination of delay and distortion. Yes, it is. The thing is, though, that it does it in strange ways, and there's this flux thing it's kind of like a bit of granular synthesis. It just splits it into chunks, and it assigns different chunks different things, he said, in a not at all technical sounding way. All right, I am sold on that. Right, I'm going to save that. Because this is one thing I've learned. It's like, oh, I'll remember that setting. No, I won't. So I think this will be roundabout track 57, I think it is. So 57, one full cello. That'll do. All right, so I'm keeping that. And I kind of like what I just played, so thankfully we have Capture MIDI. Is that going to do anything? Yes, it is. There it is, look. So that can be a nice brief little musical sketch that I can come back to tomorrow and build on. That's gorgeous, even if I do say so myself. Yeah, I like that. So that's Innovelt. So I've been messing about and installing bucket loads of stuff, all of which, apart from the Spitfire stuff, is free. And I've really, really enjoyed playing with stuff and just having a few more extra nice things to play with. The one that I haven't figured out yet, which is insane, Atitlan, I don't know if you've played with this yet. Atitlan says, Capture MIDI is something I'd like in Studio One. It has Capture Audio, but not Capture MIDI. Capture Audio would be useful because there are times when I've played something on the guitar and I think, oh, that's great. And then the doorbell rings, and when I come back, it's like, what did I just play? And can I remember it? Nope. So have you come across Stokas at all? And it's mad. So I really have no idea what I'm doing here. It's a stochastic sequencer, and Ashiklan says no. You basically pick the probability, and if I right click it, I can make that it will be medium probability that it plays that note. And then if I play, it's not really doing a lot, is it? Oh, I know why. Because I dropped... See, this is one of the behaviours of Ableton that I really don't like, is that rather than it chaining the MIDI synthesizer that I was using, it's replaced it entirely. So I now have to go back to Spitfire Audio and go back to BBC Symphony Orchestra and drop that after Stokas, which it hasn't done. Okay, why hasn't it done? You get the idea. I'm way out of my depth with it, but Stokas is basically a MIDI sequencer that uses chaotic sequencing. The YouTube videos I've watched several times and I still can't get my head around it, as I have amply demonstrated just now. So we'll draw a veil over that one. So let's go back to me. So I mentioned Pure Magnetic because I said there was some other stuff that I said I was going to mention, and of course, with not writing it down, I haven't mentioned it, and I've completely. Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, so we covered the. It's what Ludwig would have wanted. The whole thing about tired ears. It's really shown me how fatiguing listening to stuff loud is. It's really not something that I need to do as much as I have been doing, and I certainly don't need to stay up until 1:45 in the morning. Right, so covered that. One other free unit that I really like. So we've got Oral River. We've got Inner Velt on a separate channel there. What I also have really taken to in a big way is a free reverb called Oral River, which is here. So if I drop this on the main cellos, we'll turn Inner Velt off for the moment. Oral River is free. It has a bucket load of really interesting presets. And the one that I keep coming back to, especially with instruments that have mids, sort of low mids and high lows, is this Deep Cave. So if I play the cello patch again with this on, check this out. So that's probably too low for the cellos. So let's put those up to C2 and try that again. It's not playing those notes, is it? Never mind. You get the idea. The Deep Cave setting on Oral River is, as Atislan has just said, really lush. It is absolutely gorgeous. It lingers in the low mids in a really, really gorgeously beautiful way. And we're back to Pachelbel again, aren't we, really? Because that was the Pachelbel chord progression. So again, Oral River, absolutely free. Check it out, install it. You will love it. And that's kind of The Wobby says, I've played with that a few times. It is really, really, really rather beautiful. And let's put it like this. There are songs that I've used Oriel River in preference to Valhalla Supermassive. And that's saying something, because Supermassive I use probably far more than I should do. It just goes on everything. So that's kind of me done for this evening. I hope you'll go off and download some of these toys. Give them a play. As I say, I made sure that the majority of these, I'm not sure about. Let's find out with Oriel River, because I hope that is available for Macintosh, because I don't want to set Mel off looking for something. There you go, look. It's available as a Mac download. So it's, go to KVR Audio, who just have the place for free plugins, and look for Oriel River by Denis Tihanov, and it is very, very gorgeous. And Atitlan says, thanks for introducing Surge. That definitely looks like something seems worth checking out. It really is. It is. Gosh, oh look, there's Mr. Lin with his Linstrument. So he's a user. I love the fact it's open source and it's on GitHub rather than any of these other sort of free stuff. So Ryako Music says, sorry, I get so sad when I can't use stuff. I mean, me too. I would love to just splurge on so many of the VST packages that are available these days, like Contact. I've got the free Contact. Is it Contact Player? I thought, woohoo! I can use all sorts of really interesting stuff, and I even bought the. I don't know if you're aware of the Pripyat Pianos VST plugin that works with Contact, which was a bunch of absolute idiots. I mean, fair play to them, but they are absolutely insane for doing it. They went into the exclusion zone in Chernobyl or Pripyat and decided, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea if we sampled the pianos that are radioactive and then turned them into a VST? And I thought, right, this is so mad. I've got to have this. And it's lovely. And the YouTube demonstration videos, I mean, it was $49. So it's not an awful lot of money, but I bought it and dropped it into my Contact player. And the first time I used it, it worked perfectly. And it was like, oh, this is really good. So then, of course, I came back to it and Contact said, no, that needs the full version of the player. Sorry, computer says no. And it refused to play the samples anymore. So I know Mel uses Contact and has a bunch of Contact instruments, of which I've just watched the scoring sessions for Metropolis every week and go, ooh. And I think kind of like my budgeting plans are with being retired now are quite limited. And I've blown my budget for like the next 3 months on the desk, which fingers crossed will be arriving sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks, if all goes according to plan. And then the bed goes, and I've been tidying up, and there's nothing on the bed other than the mattress now, because it was just my dumping ground for everything else. Ryako Music says, I got the Contact for free along with something, I think. And Ashitland says, Contact Player has some bugs that keep screwing with library licensing. That doesn't surprise me. I'm hoping I'll give it another go then. So it might be that the player that I've got is sufficient to play the Pripyat pianos, but I have a feeling it isn't. And I know that I want to get complete at some point because A, I'm a Native Instrument fanboys, and B, the desk is basically built with a shelf for a MIDI controller keyboard. So much as I love the push, the faffing about of literally just sliding over there and playing proper keyboards and then moving over here, I am wearing holes in my carpet. That's how bad it's getting. Ryako Music says, I use an older version of Contact. DeFresh Do says standalone VSTs are better in my opinion. Yeah, totally agree. Although I do like having everything within one unit that I can just call up. But yeah, totally agree. I just want an instrument that I can say, I want this instrument, I want to drop it in Ableton, and I want it to just work. And the player paradigm is irritating, but I can live with it. But so I think eventually when the new desk is in, I will probably end up buying one of the Native Instruments complete control keyboard controllers that integrates with Ableton and it integrates with Contact, and then they come with bundled versions of Complete, and then I can then use the version I've got to get upgrade pricing to the full version of Complete rather than buying it now and then finding that I have wasted several £100 doing something that I don't need to have done. But it's, frustrating. So at the moment I'm consoling myself with small purchases like the Spitfire Audio intimate strings and the ultimate brass and stuff like that. Ashitland says, also vendors have to remember to set a flag that allows player rather than full contact. And I guess some vendors aren't looking for player users as their demographic. So, I mean, why wouldn't you? But, okay. But the Pripyat pianos are still on my PC because I paid money for them. I'm not going to give that up. So it'll probably be next year, but eventually I will have something in Ableton that will allow me to play it. But it's just frustrating that you buy stuff and you think, oh, that needs something that I don't actually own. So then you go down the whole rabbit hole of upgrading your kit or your software. And I went through this process a couple of years ago. I bought a new TV and suddenly realized that my 21-year-old audiovisual amplifier / receiver / tuner / everything else was horrendously out of date because most of the audio codecs that the TV was sending to my old Denon player, the Denon was going, huh? And it's like, where's the sound gone? And then I realised. So updated the Denon amp for a Yamaha amp and then realised that the PS3 that I used to play Blu-rays on didn't actually support the codecs that my new amp could, so then I had to buy a new Blu-ray player. You get where this is going. You just end up with this cascade of updates to gear that just never seems to stop. And with hi-fi, I only do it once about every 25 years, so it's not exactly a big deal. And at the time I was able to afford just going, oh, well, I'll just buy a 4K player and I'll just have one of those. Oh, and I'll have one of those as well. But the speakers that I use on my system, I bought 30 years ago, and I don't think I don't want to replace them because they're bloody good speakers. And so those were not included in the gear upgrade downstairs. But up here, I mean, it's a never-ending story of gear upgrades. So, you know, the hard disk recorder is 15 years old. Most of those synths, the M3 at the bottom there is the newest synthesizer that I own, and that's 11 years old now. I try not to spend money on new gear. I try to pick up stuff that other people are casting off because they've upgraded and they want to get rid of it cheap, or just stuff that a newer model comes out, which is what happened with the mixer, because this is a Mark II Mackie mixer, bought when Mackie announced the Mark III, which is super shiny and has fluorescent highlighting and all sorts of stuff that this doesn't. But my God, this is perfectly adequate for, more than adequate for what I want it to do, and it's got all sorts of cool effects. So, I mean, what have we got here? It's got somewhere a whole bunch of strange effects. So even more than the wedding DJ, this puts the wedding DJ setup to shame. So I've got bright room, small warm lounge, small stage, warm theatre, warm hall. So yeah, why would I want that? I do occasionally get this enabled by mistake, and Mel goes, "What's wrong with your voice?" So, is that going to do anything? Oh yeah, it is. There's it really does mess with the ambience of the room. That is quite disturbing, actually. That's a vocal doubler. Does that sound doubled to you? That just sounds like bordering on feedback to me. And should be an echo on that. Yeah, there is a bit. And a fast delay. Yeah, that's really... This isn't Wedding DJ, this is Acid Head. Acid Head Dope Fiend in the middle of the light show with the oil wheels, isn't it? Or that? That one's not... Yeah, that one's... Let's turn them all off, shall we? So... completely screwed myself with that. I can still hear something bizarre going on. What's going on? Is that... Can you guys... That should be just a dry... Yeah, that's just a dry signal. So, yes, we are going to play with all of those, says Wobby. And I do. I love finding out what... That really is starting to feed back, which is odd because it shouldn't do. I haven't changed the volume. I like finding out what gear can do. I like going down the rabbit hole. With a synth, I try not to just rely on presets. I like fiddling. I like understanding the signal chain, which is why something like the... wasn't the Plogue one, was it? What was the one that we... Flow Motion. The FM synthesis scene sequencer that Waves make. I will eventually just have to sit down with the manual and figure out how it works, because it drives me to distraction, not knowing what the thing's doing and not being able to create a sound and thinking of sound in my head and then going to a machine and going, okay, well, to make that sound, I need this and this and this and this and this, and I need to set that to that and that to that. And the JX3P, which is nearly 40 years old now and showing its age, it's still on its original battery, which I should probably get replaced at some point. But I can sit down on that and just make a sound and get a sound that I want. And with the Junos, it's dead easy because you've just got the sliders and you can adjust things. And even with the M3, which has got its very, very fancy touch display, that thing there, you can do so much on synthesizers if you know what you're doing. And I don't want to be another preset guy on soft synths, although to be honest, over the last year or so while I've been ill, I kind of haven't had the right headspace for sitting down and going, okay, let's figure out what this is doing. And I need to do that. And I guess being retired, I have the time to do it. So maybe that's kind of a musical journey that I can take you guys on over the next few months. There's a lot of discussion on here about wedding DJ vocal effects. Atitlan says progression through a wedding reception, musical genres and suitable DJ voice. We could have, so what are going to be DJ voices for? We're sidetracked again, aren't we? Squirrel. What are going to be? See, this is your homework for next week. You can come up with different vocal processing techniques for DJs presenting music of different musical genres. So, for instance, what is death metal's normal DJ voice processing going to be? What is EDM's normal DJ processing voice going to be? I want to know. I want, Bobby says, a funny but tearjerker hospital radio song. That needs to be a challenge on 5090 for this weekend. That people have to write a funny but tearjerker hospital radio song. Yeah, Bobby says, I reckon it could be a killer. It's in my ideas list. Brilliant. I want to hear this. I really do. My village has a local radio station now that broadcasts on the internet, and I haven't picked up the courage to listen to it yet. Ryako Music says hospital radio. Yeah, a lot of the hospitals over here will normally have a guy stuck in a broom cupboard with a couple of CD players and a microphone, and he will play musical requests for patients and visitors of the patients on the radio station that actually only broadcasts within the building. And Wobby says, hey, that's our song. You are in it now. That has reminded me what the last thing was that I'd promised to do and had completely forgotten about because I've been sidetracked and sidetracked and sidetracked within sidetracks. And again, we're down to the inception of sidetracks. I promised I would play you the collaboration that Wobby and I did this week. So Wobby came up with the music and the ideas, and basically said, okay, what we kind of want to do is a song about the merch desk at gigs. Now, I've done my time on merch desks at gigs, And I've even helped out on a merch desk, thanks to being roped into it by my dear friend Helen, running or helping to run the Motorhead Bangers merch desk at a Motorhead gig at the Hammersmith Odeon. And man, that really opens your eyes to, well, what the News of the World used to describe their byline as, all human life is there. And you realise running a merch desk certainly at heavy metal gigs, that there are people out there for whom numeracy is a bit of a challenge. And okay, I accept that people really don't always have enough privilege to be able to get the education that they need to teach them to add numbers up. But these dudes are basically out in the world as adults and were struggling with figuring out how much they needed to pay me for 2 patches that were £2 each. So yeah, merch desks are the way a lot of bands are keeping afloat at the moment. And unfortunately, because there are no gigs, there are no opportunities for merch desks. And with no opportunities for merch desks, their income's dried up, which kind of sucks. But that's kind of getting off the tangent a bit. Wobby basically nailed all the tropes and what you're looking for in a merch disc. So without further ado and more waffle, this is Wobby and my track called Merch.
Pre-show fizz of anticipation, going to see the band. Following the crowd up from the station, seeing who is a fan. It's so easy to spot them, no trouble at all. The way they're dressed, what's written on their chest, yeah, they've been to the merchandise store where they've got sticks, coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew-on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. After show buzz and the merchandise stall is enticing and appealing, all pinned out nicely on the wall. My debit card is reeling. You need a souvenir, of course. That t-shirt's what you want. Dates on the back, white on black, logo in the trademark font. Glow sticks, coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew-on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. Buy a t-shirt 2 sizes too big, that's my advice. Wouldn't it be nice if the merchandise was half the price? I could buy it twice. Glow sticks, coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew-on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. I remember back in the day, stencils and a denim jacket. We'd take that can of paint and spray and it didn't cost a packet. Now you can get all sorts, except that is for free things. Mug and a wallet, or whatchamacallit, programs, pens and key rings. Glow sticks, coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew-on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. All official. Coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew-on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. Glow sticks, Hey, mate, I like your tote bag.
Oh, cheers.
You're like the rockinest dude in Sainsbury's, man.
Oh, thanks. Dig your hoodie. Wasn't that glorious? Doing that was so much fun. So thank you to Wobby for asking me to participate in that. De Fresno says relatable AF. It totally is. Just so much fun. And yeah, glow sticks, coasters, tote bags, posters, tons of band name goodies, button badges, sew on patches, t-shirts, hats and hoodies. You can't go wrong. Asitlan says, typically great Wobby ending. And Wobby says, that's made my day. Well, thanks, mate. Array of Emotion says, quite adorable. It was. And yeah, just so much fun. So that's 3 songs we've recorded together now over the years. And I totally up for doing another one. So this hospital radio one sounds really up for it. And what was the other one? We were going to do another one. I'm going to have to scroll back in the chat after this is done to find out what the other one was, unless you guys can remember. But let's not get sidetracked then. So I think with that rather splendid rendition of Merch! By Wobby with guest vocals and harmonies and acting by me at the end. Oh, and I did a bit of piano and a bit of guitar in the middle. That I think we've come to the end of tonight's show, which has been great fun, and I can't believe it that I've been going nearly 3 hours, which is one of the longest shows I think I've done. And it's mainly because I've got you guys to play off, which is rather nice, rather splendid to see you all coming along and heckling and talking about Belgian heavy metal bands and all sorts of other stuff that perhaps we won't talk about right now. But at least we didn't get involved in poop socks. Ashitland66 says, covers a lot of ground tonight, lots of rabbit holes traverse. We're all about the rabbit holes. And as Ryako Music says, we're all about the cheese. De Fresno says, yep, cheese. And now I want cheese. And a really, really nice Stilton and bacon sandwich would go something a treat right now. But sadly, I've no Stilton in the house, and all the supermarkets will be shut. But never mind. Array of Emotion says, ooh, and Ryako Music says, Did you know, final squirrel of this evening, did you know that in the United Kingdom, the total percentage of cheese retail dedicated to blue cheese, so things like Stilton and its ilk and the French blue cheeses, amounts to less than 5% of the total cheese market in the United Kingdom. Less than 5% of people in the UK who eat cheese are prepared to eat blue cheese like Stilton. And do I care? No, I'm pleased, because that means there's more for us. Ryaka Music says, you have all the cheddars. An Array of Emotion says, I am not surprised. Yeah, I'm kind of not either, but my goodness me, melty blue cheese in a bacon sandwich. Oh my goodness. There are few finer. If you want to make the best mac and cheese on the planet, add Stilton to it. Seriously, this is Chris's gourmet tip. Mac and cheese, of course, gourmet cooking. If you want your mac and cheese to just scale heights hitherto unclimbed in your culinary adventures, drop Stilton into your mac and cheese about 5 minutes before you take it out of the oven. OMG. You need to do this. This is, again, so your homework this week is wedding DJ genre vocal processing techniques for different sorts of music and mac and cheese with Stilton. Trust me on this. So Wobby says, I love Camembert and Gorgonzola. Stilton is God obvious. And Riako Music says, I've done it because Stilton is killer. See, we are of a like mind, you and I. And Riako Music says, I want some Sherbot vocals. That is actually something that I will be discussing in an upcoming show, because there is another free VST plugin that I have, which, and Atitlan says auto-tune. Yeah, forget the auto-tune side of it. I'm going back to Miku Stomp territory here, because I have discovered and downloaded and installed a VST that allows you to do Vocaloid vocals, but they're based on samples of a female French death metal singer. I kid you not. So you have that to look forward to in an upcoming show. But until that takes place, I will just say, as I always do, wear a damn mask. You know, this is why we can't have nice things. Wear a damn mask. And for the rest of you, stay safe, stay sane, and stay well. And I will see you on the 5090 show, which will be the last show of 5090 show that takes place during 5090 this year. So that's on Sunday at 9 p.m. British Summer Time and 10 p.m. Europe and all the other times. And I'll be back here again 7:30 p.m. next Thursday evening. Until then, good night, have a good one, and look after yourselves.